My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And tonight, folks, we're going to cover a myriad of different things, including a very strange video that somebody sent me a short time ago. I'll cover that. It's from Consent. It's Queer Kids Stuff, and it talks about how no means no and yes means yes, and how toddlers can understand what consent is. We're going to discuss that a little bit, of course. We're going to talk about Lindsey Grahm interviewing the potential FBI director, and the reality of how he didn't do any better of a job than a talking head that has zero experience whatsoever. I don't know why Lindsey Graham's still in office. And then we'll follow up on this whole collusion thing with the DNC and the Russians. Let's get started. All right, so if I seem a little aggravated, I'm not aggravated. This stuff has gone crazy. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And I'm tempted to pull Twitter up right here, but I really, really don't want to, because I got it over here where I'm not going to be bothered by it. So in case there's any trolls, I guess I'll pull it up here just in case. Might want to turn that down. So yesterday, I pontificated a little bit. It was the first time I've been back since I went to see Norma and Bob in Ohio. And I hope Norma's on here now, because I want to ask her about something that she sent me on an email. So yesterday I had a lot to say when I first got in, because, man, I've been driving for 6-7 hours. And so I just wanted to come in and give a data dump of everything that was going on. So today, after looking at the news, after going over what we went over yesterday, look, it's interesting, folks, that the headline on Fox News, let me turn it over there to Fox News here so you can hear what the headline is. I didn't even check CNN today, but this is Fox News' headline. Now, this is after the long discussion that we had here yesterday on the offensive. White House alleges DNC Clinton caught in collusion, and they're talking about with the Russians. So that's interesting. I'm not saying I have anything to do with it, but I will tell you that I've been foreseeing this for a long, long time. Also, the other subheadline here was that the Russian connection, shadowy company tied to troubled Trump Jr. meeting. So again, yesterday we laid everything out there that we need to lay out about the collusion of the DNC and the Russians, about how the president is this is Intel 101, and how he's being played by all these people. Donald Trump Jr. was played. Michael Flynn was played. He just lied about it. The rest of these people, every time this ambassador shows up, the ambassador, one of these business people, anything Russian seems to mysteriously lead to everybody knowing about it. And if this is a true, look, again, I said before, investigations are never this clean. And if these people, or if it was just a meeting that Donald Trump Jr. or an email that Donald Trump Jr. got, or a meeting with somebody, if those people were legit, you would never know about that meeting. The sheer fact that we're all finding out about these things tells you in no uncertain terms that these people are plants. Every single meeting comes out. Who else do you know that does something wrong, and every single time they did it, they got discovered? I mean, look, if people are going to do things wrong and they're that bad at it, you might as well stop way ahead of the time, because you're going to go to jail. So this stuff just doesn't make any sense. I don't think it makes much sense to anyone, except for the fact that it's interesting that the female, one of the females is involved with this, was pictured with Trump, or excuse me, pictured with McCain, who we know that the RNC, there's people in the RNC that are in cahoots with the DNC, that swear allegiance to the DNC. There's people in Russia that swear allegiance to the DNC. Because, listen, I keep telling everybody, the Clintons are not gone. If the Clintons can get back on the horse, they will. They're not going to walk away with their tail down. They have nothing to fear about getting put in jail. For some strange reason, the president has not gone after them. And the FBI is been tainted by people like McCabe at the top, who's another one that has not been dealt with. So stand by one second here. Let me write Michael Jack, see if he wants to come on. He just wrote me. So we're going to cover that last, okay? Or not that. We're going to cover the Lindsey Grahm and the new potentially new director of the FBI. We're going to cover that last, and we'll get Michael Jack in here, former senior FBI agent, GS-15. He'll come in and talk about the reality of that interview. I watched some of it. Lindsey Grahm, unbelievable. So here's what I want to bring up first, okay? I'm having a real problem. There's so many children disappearing in this world. Look, you got to deal with me here, okay? I'm not going to go down the road of talking about Pizzagate and talking about the pedophilia problem or the sex trafficking problem. Those are things that that I believe need to be investigated covertly, not overtly. Why would you talk? Look, I feel the same thing about dealing with pedophiles as I do dealing with Kim Jong-il and Muslim fundamentalists. Why tell them that you're coming after you? That's an ego thing. Real investigations happen in secret, and real sources come out in secret, and real surveillance happens in secret. You're not going to get any of this stuff overtly. And all these people are wondering why they're getting dying, or why their careers are getting ruined, or assets are getting frozen, because there's people in government, there's people in Hollywood, there's people in all walks of life, and all these mysterious, dark secret societies that are into pedophilia, that are into Satanism, that are into all kinds of stuff. You're not going to fight that stuff overtly. So I'm not going to talk about it overtly on this show. I love nothing more to talk to people about it offline and tell them what my take is on it. But ultimately, my take on it is, where the heck is the FBI in this whole thing? And why are all these groups like the Underground Railroad, Ashton Kutcher, even my SEAL brother who I interviewed, Craig Sawmill Sawyer, why are these people doing this overtly? I don't get it. I asked him that question when I interviewed him, or I told him, I made a statement, it wasn't really a question. I said, I think the best way to go about this is covertly, and I don't think you're going to get much out of it overtly. And I just don't. I mean, I could have Craig on here, we could talk about it, I guess, but I don't really want to be associated with something that should be overtly investigated, and people should be crushed. I'm not going to lie to you. People that are doing this stuff should be crushed. Perhaps the best thing that anybody ever did overtly was To Catch a Predator. I forgot what that guy's name was, but he did an amazing job. And I thought that they had some people nervous about when they did that. But anyway, here's what my job is right now, because I'm not in the investigative field at this moment. Chris Hansen, yeah, thank you very much. I help out with investigations. I do protection work, but this show is about the truth, and that's what we're going to get into here. So the thing that we can do on this show right now is make sure that people are aware that pedophilia is rampant, that human trafficking is rampant, sex trafficking is rampant, but also human smuggling is rampant, and that is where people are not they're not being trafficked against their will. Those are people that want to be smuggled into the country illegally. So that's still out of control. Don't think that it stopped, because it hasn't. It's decreased, but it hasn't stopped. So our job here, and I really hope that some people are watching here tonight that are gay. And I'll tell you why. Because this should infuriate you. Sexuality in a human being, regardless of anybody telling you that they were born gay, sexuality is not fully developed until late in the teens. Now, for some people, they get it sooner and they never question it. And other people, the social norms bat them back and forth until they get it. And other people are confused their whole life, more so now than ever, because there's parents telling them at 10 years old, "Oh no, it's okay, you're gay," or "No, you're a little boy," when it's really a little girl, because they want to play with a truck and they have a question and say, "Oh, you're probably just transgender." So the kids aren't even getting an opportunity to fully develop psychologically. So it's no wonder they grow up all over the place. The parents, the best thing they could do is either do nothing and shut their mouths and let this child develop, or they could reinforce the norm, the social norm, the thing that allows procreation. Now, I don't, like I've said before, if somebody's gay, I don't care. I don't want to know what your sexuality is, but I also don't want it spread all over the place, like a mudslide. I don't think people need to be going around anymore in this country telling everybody who they have sex with. We don't need to know that in public. I don't care if you're gay or straight. But the activism is what people have to start looking at. I take the anger. I look at this the same way I look at the abortion issue. Just take the religion out of it. Okay, if you're Christian, or if you feel strongly against homosexuality or anything like that, just take your religion out of it for a while. If you're gay and you think that you don't get the equal rights or whatever, and you're angry, just take the emotion out of it for a while. Let's just look at the facts here in an unemotional stance, and let's look at the reality of what these activists are actually trying to do. And let's start with this video right here. Now, I don't know if Facebook will yank me off because of this. Sometimes they'll yank the show and because you're playing other videos, but I'm giving full credit. Queer Kid Stuff, episode number 16, with some idiot and a bear. All right, that's full credit I'm giving them on YouTube. It's for everybody to see. To my knowledge, Viral Hog doesn't own this, and whatever. So if they pull this show and something happens, then we'll deal with it. But let's just go ahead. And I want you to see this. This is for consumption for the public. You're not going to be able to see it real good because I can't get it up there real close. But let me turn the... And people should really... Again, I don't care if you're gay. This should cause you to pause, because this is a reality, folks. This is, it's sick. It doesn't matter how you say it. Listen to what these people are saying, and you should be profoundly shocked that this is even being entertained by. Let me not miss this point. By Teen Vogue, which is a magazine that is written to target young female teenagers. This should bother you. Female teenagers that are not fully developed, have not fully gone through puberty, and have they are not fully sexually developed in their sexual psychology. The development of their behavior is not fully developed. And these people are wanting to tell everybody that even a toddler can understand consent.
And I'm Teddy.
Welcome to Queer Kid Stuff. Today we're talking about consent.
We all are part of one big family. Gaming's happy. Queer Kid Stuff. You are enough. Here.
I don't even want to hear that. So,
Welcome to another episode of Queer Kid Stuff. Today we're talking about consent. You ready, Teddy?
Ready.
Teddy,
Yes, Lindsay?
have you noticed that I always ask you if something is okay before I do it? Ready, Teddy? You ready, Teddy? Ready, Teddy?
I guess so.
And that I always wait for you to say yes before I keep going?
Ready. 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 Yes.
Well, that's what consent is. Consent is about consenting or giving permission to someone for something.
so that's not exactly what consent is, okay? Consent also involves a full capacity to know what you're being asked to do. Consent is something that a person has to have full conscious behavior of the ramifications of it, the results of it, and you have to be able, and in a legal place, to be able to make the consensual call of yes or no, of which, in most circumstances, a toddler is absolutely not. A young person is not. Teenagers are legally not in most cases. So this makes absolutely no sense. I don't care how they spin this. This is like pedophile 101. And if you're sexual, listen, I talked to somebody the other day whose parent, is gay, but they're older now, and they really have, their parent has a real problem with the reality of this whole gay movement, because there's a difference between having a homosexual tendency. In other words, you are attracted sexually to people who are of your own gender. That's completely different than somebody who identifies with the gay community, because the gay community is largely filled with activists and people that are looking for a place to belong. It's not just in the gay community. We have all kinds of cultures around the world where people gravitate. I remember working when I was doing threat assessments for Homeland Security. We were staying at a hotel where they had cat breeders, and they all came there. They all looked exactly the same. They all dressed the same, talked the same. That was a culture. They weren't just breeding cats. They were part of a culture, and it made them feel good to be a part of a culture. Well, listen, the gay community is that way, but just because somebody has homosexual tendencies doesn't mean that they are necessarily automatically a part of the gay community. They're not. A lot of people don't want people to know who they have sex with, and it has nothing to do with who they are or how they work, just a sexual preference. You, if that's you, should be very angry at this, because they're talking about queer kid stuff, which, again, going through the developmental stage, kids are not fully sexually developed until they're well into their teens. Well into their teens. So there should be no queer kid stuff, because technically there's no queer kids. They're kids who may go through stages of a homosexual feeling in their mind. It's not uncommon for young people, regardless of your sexuality, when you get older, to have had dreams about your sexual dreams about your parents as you're growing up, about the same sex, or somebody you saw in a movie. Your sexuality is developing. And that's what happens. One of the biggest things out of this, who should really feel ashamed of themselves, is the whole psychological association or community out there of psychologists and psychiatrists who are so, it's just like the Department of Justice. It's so leftist and left wing that they, remember again, liberals, I'm not, just because I say leftist and left wing does not mean I'm looping all liberals in on this. Okay. So don't think that. I'm trying to make that point clear so more people will not turn this show off or get offended. You may be liberal. You have nothing to do with this nonsense. Leftist and far left activists, they have pushed this whole thing into a realm that, in the psychology world especially, where they are making excuses for people and they're validating things that should not, they have no reason to be validated. There's nothing to it. But just like this Russian probe, it's very similar. I was talking to somebody today, and after reflecting on the show that I did yesterday, and I'm going to link these two together. Investigations don't work this way, where you make an accusation and then you find the proof. It never works that way. It's that you find a piece of evidence and you link that to the theory. And then you try to continue to go where the evidence leads you. You don't go where the theory leads you and then find evidence, because typically that is created evidence. Somebody's creating that evidence. And it's the same thing here. It's the same thing here. Psychologists and psychiatrists are so on the bandwagon, just like scientists are on the bandwagon with global warming or climate change, now they're calling it, because it wasn't really global warming, it's climate change now. So the scientists get on board with that. They have a theory, and then they go out and find the evidence for it. It's the same thing here. And it's a lie. The whole thing is a lie. The psychology department has given, in this psychology field in this country and around the world, psychology and psychiatry have basically, because they're all so leftist, that they've created a narrative and then went out and created evidence for it by just simply saying that, transgender is not a disorder. It is it's just somebody's sexuality. So they went in and reclassified that in the DSMR. They did the same thing with homosexuality. They did anything that is, listen, anything, folks, in this world that does not follow the straight and narrow path. And I'm talking about the religious straight and narrow path, so don't get me down that road. It as nature intends for procreation and the survival of the fittest, if it does not follow that, then it should be considered an abnormal disorder. Just like dimples. Dimples are, I don't know if most of you people know this, but dimples are a physical disorder, whatever you call it. But we're not going to rewrite the entire science books because people have dimples. I actually like when people have dimples. They look cute. But when it comes to these other things where it veers off the track of procreation, don't take offense to it. It just means that there's been an abnormality there. It's the same thing. No different than somebody who is an albino. There's something happens in there. You have an abnormality, and where they were supposed to have skin of a certain color, there's no pigment in there, and so you can't just look at them and say, no, you have normal skin, because you don't have normal skin. Your skin's normal. I mean, it serves its purpose, but the color is going to be off. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean anything. It means you have a skin disorder. That's it. Well, it's the same thing with sexuality. That's not for procreation, because ultimately that's what sex is for, is procreation. Although humans do have sex for fun, okay? But when it veers past that one way or the other, then it's an abnormality and it's a disorder. So for the psychology department to go and then say, no, these aren't disorders, especially when people are having severe problems with this, because as I've said before, things in nature are there basically for procreation. And when things veer off, we are hardwired to think that that's not normal. And there's going to be stress, and we can change in society, and we can make adjustments where people understand it and feel comfortable with it. That's fine. But and when I speak of adults with these disorders, adults have the ability to reason, to have consent, to make decisions, and deal with their problems. So if it's a disorder, we have to look at it. We look at the ramifications of it. In the case of transgender, with a high suicide rate, that's why I don't agree with it in the military. Plus, I just don't think that the military is socially, or society is not socially ready to be working in tight quarters where women are looking at males' genitalia and men are working with women that are clearly not women in the field of battle. Society's not ready for that. The military is not ready for that. And until that day comes, the military should not have that integrated and start it off there, because the military is only for fighting and killing and saving freedom and defending freedom. Okay, so that's it. But let's take the adulthood out of it. Children, right? Children in their developmental stages will have disorders. They may come and go. This is what nature said procreation is, but they have hormones running through their body, and they may have outside influences. They may have been touched improperly and you never knew it. A doctor could have pulled a child out, and who knows, the kid could have been sick and they had to do some kind of an exam that something triggered in the brain. Nobody knows. People always tell me I was born gay. How do you know? Do you remember the time that you came out of your mom's womb? I don't think so. So you don't know if you were born gay. You don't know what happened from the time you came out of the womb to the time you started remembering. And there's a whole number of things that could have happened at that point. But look, if you're watching this show and you're gay, I'm not trying to make a point about gay people having a disorder and that they're broken or anything. None of that stuff, okay? I'm just trying to make the point here that children are developing, and we're not sure, and we will never be sure fully what causes one child to go down one path and another to have dreams about this and feelings about that. There's a whole set of circumstances that are so convoluted that we must allow children to develop fully before we label them with anything. And children should have to face the consequences when they're younger. In other words, if they do feel scared or they do feel nervous, that's okay. They're still developing. Their hormones may change, and then they may say, you know what, I don't want to be that way. But if they're being enforced and their hormones are still changing, then that person may get stuck thinking they're one way when they're feeling another, and then they're going to try to commit suicide and so on and so forth. So when we go back to this ridiculous video, you start to see how unbelievably bad this is, that they're targeting children to say that it's okay, you should know what consent is. For what other reason would they need to use that word other than something sexual? Because somebody wants to play with a doll, they're going to use the word consent? Either they're trying to, quote unquote, because the communists love to use this word, they're trying to normalize that word, which normalization, the real reality of normalization is communists are told to use that word a lot, and they're tricked into using it a lot because they don't even understand that when the normalization phase of communism comes in, that's when tanks are out there, and you literally, normalization means you will do what you're told because we're telling you it's normal. That's the way, that's where normalization really exists. So all these shalabos and all these people, they have no clue what the reality is of normalization. But we'll use normalization. Really, it's indoctrination is what they're doing. They're indoctrinating people with this word consent, young people with this word consent. And they're trying to make it sound like, hey, I want to play with your doll. And you say, okay, I consent. But that's a conversation of people asking, can I play with your doll? And you say yes. It's called sharing. And they're equating that to consent, to that word consent. But as you hear them talk, there's no way that the people that made this we're talking about dolls and toys and clothing. Let's listen to some more.
Saying yes is consent.
Yes, saying yes to someone is giving that person your consent. The easiest example is sharing. When someone asks you to share your toy with them, you can always say yes or no. When you're playing with someone, you should share your toys because it's a nice thing to do, but you always have that choice to give or not give consent.
What if it's a special toy and you don't want another bear to break it?
I hope you people never let your kid read Teen Vogue again. And you should not be letting your kids go to YouTube without knowing what they're looking at. So this bear just asked her, what about the special toy? This is just...
It might be a time to say no and not give your consent. The most important thing to remember about consent is that you should always respect when someone else says no. That is their choice to make, not yours. Even if you might not like their choice, you should always respect it because they probably have a good reason. Just like you always have a choice to say yes or no when someone asks to hug you.
Okay, got it. I can only play with someone else's toy when they say I can.
Exactly. It's really important to remember that yes always means yes and no always means no.
And pedophile means pedophile. This is the weirdest thing I've seen in a long time. I'm not surprised because these people, I think they have a feeling of invincibility, and they just think that they're going to get away with this stuff, so they do this. I'm not sure if this dude works for MSNBC or what, but this is just strange, folks. Strange. If you're one of these people who watch Facebook to make sure that we're not doing something that doesn't meet with your censorship rules, you should be looking at this real closely, because this is the kind of nonsense that creeps in. But of course, I don't know what on Facebook. I don't know what these, thousands of censors that they've hired, what they actually look for. They may like this stuff and think it's not bad, and yet they don't take videos down of underage kids beating each other up or people being murdered or all kinds. They leave those videos up. They're not worried about that. But they'll take a free speech video down. They'll leave something like this up.
The answer that isn't the word yes also means no.
So, yes means yes, no means no, and other things mean no too?
Yes. Here, I've got a little song to help us out.
Oh boy.
It goes a little something like this, and you can help us out too. If someone asks, do you wanna play, and you don't wanna say no, it's a-okay to say nay, not yay. If you don't wanna say no, if you want to play, you should say yes, so all your friends don't.
I just can't do any more of that. I don't even want it on my computer. That's just stupid. Whew. You see, folks, as I drive around this country and meet incredible people like Norma and Bob and all the rest of the people there in Ohio, and I come on here every night and I see good people saying good things, I don't understand how this stuff is allowed to progress, because it's growing. It's not something that just is like, okay, this one thing happened, it's kind of weird. Of all the people, Tosh.0, I think that's the guy's name, that does a show on Comedy Central, which is, again, strange that he pointed this out, because Comedy Central is far left as you can go. But there's a YouTube channel ran by some parents who have a bunch of young kids, like 7-year-old girls and boys, and they make videos of them in compromising positions, like taped to something, or I don't know. They're very sexualized videos. Now, I'm not talking about a couple thousand views, okay? Their videos have had over 12 billion views. How is that possible? How is it possible that YouTube has not shut that down, but yet they've censored people that have conservative networks on there? I'm surprised we haven't been shut down on YouTube yet. How is that possible? How is it possible that I drive all over this country, I meet great people, I live in New York, I meet incredible people, some of them are liberal, some of them are gay, and they don't partake in this stuff. How is it that this stuff is growing and being allowed to grow? I don't know. That's the question we got to ask ourselves. I'm trying to look at this the same way I look at the Russian ordeal, the same way I look at all these different things. What are we missing here? Who is allowing this, and how is it being allowed to happen? Well, I know, Millie, I know the devil's running rampant. There's no doubt about that. But who? I should say who. Who in government? Who in law enforcement is not stopping this? How is this happening? And I got to tell you, one thing, again, this is going to be the theme for this week. The conservative and free thinkers in this country are failing because they're not organized. And because they're not organized, they have no power in their voice. No power behind them. None. That's the truth. All right, I'm going to go to... Did I even do the A block? Nope, I guess I didn't. Let's forget about blocks tonight. We won't do A, B, or C block. Let's just go ahead and talk about Lindsey Grahm. I'm going to call Michael Jack. And, I'm sorry I'm constantly coming down on you all, but it's conservatives. I know you all are trying. But you have to understand, I hold and value the unity of free thinkers in this country to the highest regard, and I literally think it's the only way this country is going to be fixed. It's the only way we're going to be able to have a mutiny amongst the Republican Party, and then invite free thinkers, regardless if they're a little liberal or conservative. We don't need. Listen, the reality is both these political parties need to be dissolved, and the American people need to wake the blank up and start stepping forward and getting rid of these career politicians and that own every seat of government. There should be no red or blue seats in government. None. You know how when you look at the picture of government and you see all these red seats and all these blue seats, and that's the way government split up. That should not exist. Those are private companies. It should just be faces of individuals that are citizens of this country. And the rest of the country should be holding them to task on everything that they do. And so I'm going to criticize you all, because that starts with unification of the free thinkers, the conservatives, the liberals that aren't leftist. That's how we're going to be able to unify. And I'll tell you something. I always say the liberals are not leftists because I'm trying to make them feel included here. But I'll tell you who else should not be included here. The far right loonies, the ones who come on and have, I mean, I am astounded. I was watching one of Trump's press secretary, I forgot his name. He was doing a periscope from the airport where President Trump is getting ready to fly somewhere. And, some guy comes on there and says, I effing love it when he says, this effing stuff takes too long. So you're too stupid to leave out the F-bombs or the cursing. You can't just say a comment that, man, it always takes a long time to get this stuff going. You got to come on and do. See, we don't need that. There's enough people in this country that are free thinkers, that are intelligent, that are smart. And I don't mean intelligent. I don't mean Ivy League graduates. I'm talking about intelligent, wise people. That we don't need those party boys and party girls with the foul mouths and the people that have no clue about reality. We don't need that. What we do need, though, is good, emotionally controlled, well thought out, knowledgeable American citizens with good understanding, and people that know how to combine all that into wisdom and want to work together. I'm after this past week and being attacked by the right, which I said before, it's not the first time I've been attacked by people on the right. The reality is the far left, they're communists, but they're also blind sheep. The far right, and I'm not talking about the far right people who live on a ranch and have guns and they hate the government. I'm talking about those people. You could probably sit down and talk with those people. I'm talking about the people who have no couth, the people that if you say what they don't like, instead of saying, well, hold on a second, let's discuss this, they just say, you're an effing idiot, or F you, and bing, 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 and so on and so forth. Or they come on and they don't look at the fact that you have years of experience serving, bleeding for the country, and they just say, you're a buffoon that doesn't know anything. On either side, there's a reason why those people are so led astray, because they just want they just want to be self-indulged. They think that they know everything, but like all people in this generation, it seems like they want to do as little as possible and appear to know as much as they can. So I give everybody a ration of disgust and talking to, because this country is full of people that have the qualifications to be leaders and the ability to come together and unify and talk. If we just don't do it, there's only 81 people watching this on Facebook, and on Twitter we got 37 people. That's it, right? On YouTube we got 14 people. So all in all, we got a little over 100 people. That's a shame. That's really, it's kind of outrageous. If you haven't shared the show, make sure you share it. If you haven't told people about it, make sure you do. Because I'll even tell you, even Bill Mitchell, is, I guess, is a nice guy. The guy's getting 400, several thousand people watching his show. His show's not like this. Bill Mitchell doesn't have my experience. You look at, although he's buying a majority of his links and clicks and views, Dennis Michael Lynch, I've told you about him. The guy's fake. He's a narcissist. He knows little about what he's talking about. He just reads it and takes a conservative opinion on it and then spouts it out like he's angry. Thousands of people will flow over there and watch that. This show's been going on long enough. We should be having thousands of people watch this show. But the fact is, people, we have a problem with promoting the show because we get comfortable. Everybody should be taking part in this. Anyway, let's call old Michael Jack here, and we'll talk about Lindsey Grahm and the FBI, the potential FBI director. So, Michael, when you answer.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You're live, my friend.
Okay, I won't say any of them swear words that you were talking about then.
Hey, listen, I've said swear words. I'm not gonna lie that I haven't said swear words, but when one of the president's staff is videotaping something and you're able to comment and you can't keep a curse word out of that, I just find that utterly ridiculous.
Well, that's what this younger crew is about. For some reason, I've seen it in my own kids. If they're not careful, they just let stuff fly, and then when you kind of look at them and say, "What?" Yeah. And they get this surprised look on their face, like, "What? What did I do?" And you bring it to their attention. They didn't even know. Didn't even know it came out.
Now, I don't know if you got to watch the part of the show where I just played that video.
Yeah, I saw part of it. That's like horrifying to me.
How is it that this stuff is not being looked into any deeper than it is? Because I know the Bureau looks into some of this stuff, but I got to be honest with you, that's one of the things I think the Bureau has always neglected, is that they haven't done a deep enough dive on the pedophilia and stuff like that.
Well, when I was in, there was some nationwide undercover operations. I don't know if they're still going on or not, where they were chasing down those people all the time and making significant buzz. But I like I said, that was the kind of thing that you didn't really go around telling everybody what you were doing. You just caught the guys and moved on and went to the next one and the next one and the next one. But they would make hundreds of arrests. And it was a task force type thing. Customs was involved in it. The locals were involved. And it was really, really hard on the undercovers that were, working online as kids or whatever they were doing. And, it was really tough on those guys. It was a tough assignment.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know what they're doing now in that regards. But I think it's gotten worse in this country. A lot of it has to do with, like a lot of your listeners are saying, that we've just lost sight of the family. We've lost sight of the truths that things that we know to be true about how we're supposed to act and what we're, with the Christian values that we're supposed to keep, and it's not being taught, and we're paying the price.
Now, speaking of people who can make differences but don't, let's talk about Lindsey Grahm for a minute and this confirmation hearing. I wrote something down that he said. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Lindsey who?
Yeah, exactly.
Lindsey who?
He says he asked Ray if he considered Russia a friend or enemy. And his reply was, I think Russia is a foreign nation that we have to deal with very warily. Now, I think that was a good reply. But how could... that is a question that a reporter that knows nothing about would ask. He didn't ask any specific questions like, when Comey came out and laid out this entire case against Hillary Clinton in front of everybody, and he laid out a case that pretty much could have been prosecuted, would you have prosecuted that case? He didn't ask him in that question. I wrote down four other questions. Did Comey commit a felony? He didn't ask that question. He didn't ask, what is your vision for the FBI, which is very important because as we've seen Mueller, I was no fan of Mueller. I don't know if you were, but well, the next question is the FBI an intel agency or a law enforcement agency? And Mueller took it from law enforcement to intel, and I never agreed with that. Go ahead.
Okay, you got a question there?
Well, I guess the question is, that I couldn't watch much more of it than that. But did you take anything away from that? Did you see any of these questions asked? Do you feel like he was evaluated well enough? Because yesterday, I kind of railed against this guy. His background does not suit me as far as his connections with the whole rest of this political elitists, and it speaks less to the FBI than it does to just being an attorney.
Well, I watched about half of what that 5 hours or whatever it is that they spent with him today, and to be honest with you, and I read his background on the internet, what was there, and to be absolutely honest with you, I think he's a poor choice.
A poor choice.
A poor choice.
Yeah.
I personally don't think at this juncture that the FBI needs another attorney from the Department of Justice at the helm.
I agree.
We absolutely, I think right now is a time where we really need somebody like you and I have talked about in the past, somebody who grew up in the FBI, who proved themselves in the FBI, who was a great investigator, who was a great squad supervisor, who maybe got to SAC, but he was considered an agent's SAC, a special agent in charge, for those who don't know the acronym, and retired with those sorts of accolades at his going away party. That's what the Bureau needs.
Who was the deputy director that left several years ago? He had a bald head, squeaky clean bald head, big guy, real tall, but he started as a clerk and worked his way all the way up through FBI and up into deputy director. Do you remember who that was?
Oh! I think I did. I think he was when I was at headquarters. He might have been a deputy director.
Yeah, so he's the only one I ever met that I thought, this guy could be a director. I saw him on the news one day, but the rest of these people that are deputy directors, they didn't start as a clerk. These are people that went in and went bing, bang, boom and got to the top. We had one guy from the New York office. In 10 years, he was an SAC. In 10 years, working as a SAC back in New York. And to my knowledge, had only worked one, maybe two cases.
Who was his rabbi?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that usually that only happens when you've got close friends that you met or maybe even you knew before you came in the bureau that kind of just helped your career along. Every time you had a career board or something, they were there.
Yeah, apparently he did.
So I never heard of somebody making it, to SAC in 10 years. That's something. But that speaks to the culture. What's happening there too.
Yeah,
and that's why I say this is the time, and maybe Christopher Wray won't make it through the Senate, although he's got a lot of Democrats on his side. So
I think he will. I think he will because here's what I think, Mike. I think that they want exactly what we don't want. That's what I think. Yeah, I agree. But I'm just, hope against hope. You and I talked about this before. Is that maybe, Trump would put somebody up there that he thought the Republicans or somebody would not want, and he wouldn't make it through the process, and then he could come back and he could nominate somebody better. That first time around might have had more difficulty. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm not happy. I'm not happy with it at this point in time.
I just finally put your picture up there. I forgot to put that up there a minute ago. So
yeah, I thought I recognized that guy.
I just, do you see? Okay, so we haven't even got to talk to you since Comey testified. I don't think I've talked to you since then. What was when you heard Comey say, for the first time, when you heard him say that he leaked that information to that professor at Columbia University, what were you thinking at that moment?
Well, I can't use the words that I was thinking on your show at this point in time. But WTF comes to mind.
Yeah.
That was appalling. And I still don't understand why that even Feinstein said that there should be an investigation into that. And it ain't happening yet, and I don't think it's going to happen under Mueller because they were such good friends. So,
which is the other thing that I have a real problem with is how can you put a special prosecutor in that who's best friends with the director of the FBI that literally leaked information to cause a special prosecutor to be appointed. I don't.
Well, we got the same problem with Christopher Wray. He worked for Comey at the Department of Justice in the criminal division.
Right. Yeah.
So, here we are again, right? In this same circle, and there's going to be a lot of CYA of everybody in that circle until that circle can be broken somehow, and it's going to have to take Trump and he's going to have to push people through the nomination process. Get rid of the Obama people, and maybe he'll, it's like Reagan said, I'll take 80% now, and I'll come back and get the other 20 later. This might be the other 20 that he'll take care of later on.
Well, I sometimes wonder if President Trump didn't put him in office nominate him because he was Chris Christie's attorney for Bridgegate and got Chris Christie off on that, and President Trump is good friends with Chris Christie, and so Chris Christie said, this guy's loyal.
That could be, there's the old cell phone thing that where evidently he was hanging on to Chris Christie's cell phone when the defense wanted to see what was on there, and it was in the text and all that. And the judge wouldn't let him have it. So, and that kind of, put me back a little bit, because if you're supposed to be an FBI agent, you're supposed to be seekers of the truth, and that's hiding the truth,
right?
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's why I don't like attorneys in the lead of the FBI, because the legal system, which I learned about from being in the FBI, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, is that, everybody always thinks when you're found not guilty, it means that you're innocent. But that's not what it means. It means that they were unable to prove guilt. And attorneys are comfortable with that. And that's not what you want in the FBI. You want somebody who is seeking truth and seeking that innocence. And as an FBI agent, I would rather have sought evidence and then found out that this person was innocent than just been able to seek and find enough information to get them convicted as guilty.
And that's I don't know about you, but when I went my first day in the academy, 150 years ago, right before Hoover, the first day in the academy, there was GS-14 who was in charge of my class. Who stood up there and said, "FBI agents, when you graduate from the academy, are seekers of the truth. Regardless of what your personal convictions may be or what your beliefs may be or, anything like that, you follow the evidence wherever it's going to go. And if the truth says the guy that you're looking at didn't commit the crime, then you have to accept that and go on.
Right.
If he did commit the crime, you get the information together, you give it to the United States Attorney's Office, and let them decide whether they're going to prosecute or not.
Right.
You don't just make up that. You don't do that yourself. You don't make that decision yourself.
Yeah.
So, I went through 21 years of believing that, and I still believe that. That's the right way to do it. And when you have a leader that, like we just talked about with the cell phone thing and with Comey and so on, that has gone through law school, and his second year of law school, he got the lobotomy, where they took out the good part of your brain and they stuffed the lawyer part in your brain, and that's what you end up with.
Yeah.
You don't end up with a lot of integrity in your organization.
That's right. Right. Well, we'll see. I don't know if this president, I think he does listen to people. When everybody got all up in arms about Chris Christie, you saw Chris Christie disappear. It wasn't so much the media, that was people. And I wish he would listen to the people now, because we need to stop using people like this, people like Petraeus. Once they prove that they're not worthy of upstanding leadership, they should be gone. How could anybody ever give Petraeus any praise whatsoever after what he did? But that's not.
He obviously had some lapses in judgment along the way, and that would disqualify him for the position that he was in. I'm not one that would want to just totally condemn some guy and everything he's done in his life, but for whatever reason at this point in his life, in the position he was in, he had made some poor decisions.
Well, I wouldn't condemn him if he did great things before that, but when you give national security binders, as in plural, of national security information to somebody because you're having sex with them, you pretty much have broken every bond of trust with the United States government that you can, and I don't think that that's a trust that can be or should be reestablished. There's plenty. Here's the thing, I guess, Mike, is that there's so many people out there that are qualified to do these things and much brighter that we have not fought a successful war since 1950. We have not. The FBI has gone from being a forward-moving, forward-thinking law enforcement agency to a almost completely reactive intelligence agency, and the DOJ has been subverted by communists. I know I may be looking at it in a harsh way, but I think there's evidence for all that.
That was the tough part about being in headquarters or being in the bureau, is you had the Department of Justice right across the street. And if you take a look at the people that are the career prosecutors and career bureaucrats over there in the Department of Justice, they're overwhelmingly, to the left. And it was difficult sometimes, especially in national security matters, to get them to move in the right direction sometimes. But I will say that when I was at DOJ, it was during the Clinton administration. It was during Janet Reno's time over across the street, and there were some things that I wanted to do that ended up on her desk or in a conference room that she actually picked up on when other people didn't and approved it for, the right reason. So, she was thinking in the right way, but, she was still kind of on that left side of the aisle.
She was left, but Janet Reno had a command presence, which I haven't seen from an FBI director in a long time.
She did. She did. She was, and Louis Freeh was the director at that time, and he was the director for most of my career, and I really admire that guy. He was great, but he was an agent's director. He had been an agent, and he'd earned every stripe that he got.
Louis Freeh, who was an FBI agent, whose son is now a Navy SEAL, he used to have, and I'm sure you know this, but he had every graduating class come to his office and sit in his chair so that they could, I don't know if you knew that or not, but he did that because he wanted them to feel the weight of that office and the pressure and stress that he was under. I think that's great. And he used to go running with them as well.
He did. He would go down to the academy and go running with them when they did their stuff. And he was Louis Freeh was actually a former partner in New York with a guy that I was partners with in L.A., and we were both at headquarters together. And it was a very unique experience. And knowing his partner, my partner, I got information about him that was really impressive, personal information. I'll tell you what, the guy was great, and I'd go into battle with him anytime.
Gosh, we got some weirdos on Twitter, man.
I was noticing that.
Oh my Lord! I don't know who these people. Go ahead.
I was going to, change the subject on you a little bit. Do you got time?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, you were talking earlier about, doing away with political parties and stuff, and you know that I'm active in the party out here.
Yes.
I am in a swing county in a swing state. And the party in this county has been, you came out and talked to us, the party in this county has been almost dysfunctional for, several years. But we are doing our best right now to do just what you said in your talk. We're unifying. Mm-hmm. And we're getting stronger. And we are starting to get attention of people who used to support us a lot and who didn't in the past. But the way we're doing that is through synergy.
Right.
It's sitting down and talking to people and saying, okay, this is what we believe, and this is what you believe, or what I believe, what you believe. Let's find out where the common ground is, and between the two of us, come up with something better.
Right.
And it's working. It's working. And the other thing we're doing is we're getting away from this issue-based platforms and going back to what the Founding Fathers did when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, but primarily Declaration of Independence. They based it on principles. They based it on natural law and principles. So we're getting back to just talking about principles and getting away from, the hot topic of the day.
Right.
And people are starting to realize, principle-based leadership in a party is a better way to go.
We know
it's in infant stages, but we're having some success.
When I came and spoke to you all, that was where there was a female that was a liberal in the crowd. And I don't know if you've ever talked to her again. I've never heard from her, but her and I don't know if that was her husband or boyfriend that was there, but was somebody just said that Michael Jack works for the Rothschilds, not an American citizen. Yeah. So,
well, I don't even know who those guys are.
I know. But anyway, no, that's funny. But she was open to the now she was a little aggressive in some stances of we were talking about she was talking about white privilege for some reason. She wanted to bring that up, and we had a pretty intense discussion about that. But it was interesting to see people show up that were really concerned with just the dialogue and having common ground and coming together and looking for solutions, not trying to prove that they knew exactly what was right.
Right, exactly. And that's the way, it's ultimately going to have to work if we're going to solve the problems of the day.
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, we're actually, I lost the point I was going to say. I know what it was. One of the things that we're also doing that a lot of us think the same way you do.
Yeah.
We got to be able to unite with everybody, but the conservative route is a better way to go than the liberal route, because we believe in the Constitution. We believe in what the founding fathers had to say.
Right.
We need to get that back instilled in our society. So we taken a page from or a chapter, I guess, from Saul Alinsky, from Rules for Radicals, and decided the best way to do that is from within.
Mm-hmm.
Is working within the party, changing the party in critical ways in critical places. And where I am is a critical place.
Right.
So if we can do it right here and hold it up as a model, then it'll go well in other counties and maybe other states, and it'll just start to spread.
I think you're more critical than Washington D.C. That's after talking to you all and in Tucson and then all these other places I've been. I'm here to tell everybody, Washington D.C. may be where the final votes for a law are made and things like that. But the reality is the most critical areas in this country for taking the country back is at the ground level and unification, because it just has to get to the point where let's say, whenever John McCain runs again, people just say, no, you're not running. The people should be able to say that you're not running. And I think that if the people had the power of unification and dialogue, they could say, when somebody came up there and said, I'm running again for a fourth term, they would say, no, you're not. Somebody else is running for president or for senator or for congressman. And go ahead.
Term limits are an absolute must. That needs to take place.
But even if we didn't have them, even if we didn't have term limits, I think the people should be so unified that they are able to say, you are not running again. We will not stand behind you, and we won't even recognize you. And if the people were that united, because all they got, here's the thing, Mike, all you got to do is look at Washington, D.C. If somebody's been in Washington, D.C. for more than 5 years or 2 terms for a congressman, my book, they should be considered a failure. They could be nice, but nothing has happened there. It's a failure. So
I think it'd be a little longer, but because it takes the first term or two as a representative just to figure out where your office is. Just to figure out where your office is at, let alone get anything done. But
have you watched the show?
I agree. I think that that's what the primaries are for. Is basically you get these guys that are narcissists, and they'll put their finger in the air and they'll see which way the wind's coming from, and they'll do whatever they can to convince people to vote for them. But it's not going to change their stripes any. When they get to the, they can apply or they can sign up to run for their office, but when they actually get to the primaries, that's when the people need to stand up and say, no, John McCain, this new guy over here, this is who we want. You have to retire. And that's where it needs to happen. Right. Not in the generals, right in the primary.
Right. No, I agree. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna close it out, and I wanted to ask you, and maybe I'll save that for later this week, about the FBI agents that are in trouble because they shot in Oregon during that standoff when they had right before. Sorry, I just forgot the guy's name that got killed. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
Bundy. Well, not the guy. Yeah, it was Bundy was there, but
Bundy wasn't the guy that got killed. Somebody will tell me here in just a second what his name was. But anyway, the agent that got brought up on obstruction of justice charges was in New York office with me, and evidently shot, and then Finicum. Yeah, thank you very much. And didn't said that he didn't shoot when he did. I don't understand. If you want to look into that and tell me what you think about it, I don't understand why an agent would do that. Makes no sense to me. But,
yeah, I don't either. I'll have to look it up because I don't remember exactly what happened, but I was under the impression it was a local that shot the guy. But
it was. These guys shot at him and shot the truck, but when they were asked if they shot, they said no. And I can't understand why they would do that. So now the state brought up charges, and then the OIG from the Department of Justice got involved, and they charged him. So yeah.
Yeah, I have to research that. You remember Lon Harushi, the guy at Ruby Ridge?
Yeah.
Who the sniper?
Yep.
The state brought up charges on him too, and the feds, stepped in and under the supremacy clause were able to, take care of that.
I don't think it's going to happen this time because it sounds like OIG's involved with it and they're agreeing. So. Yeah.
You think?
When OIG gets involved, it's not good because most of those guys, I don't know. I was going to give them a ration, but I'll leave it at that. When they get involved, it's not good.
Well, it goes back to the small agency syndrome, the small man syndrome.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm glad you said it for me. Oh my goodness! All right, listen, brother. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it, and it's good to see we agree. We typically do agree on this stuff, and it's not because we've been brainwashed. It's because we've been there and we see it on the outside better, actually, than the way we did when we were on the inside. I'm amazed at how blind people are while they're in the government. I was the same way.
It's crazy. I talk to people and I'm going, "Are you not? Do you read? Do you know how to read?"
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like you and what we're trying to do. We have to stay out there. We have to keep going on, no matter how discouraging it gets. I know you were discouraged on the numbers you had tonight, but you can't stop. You got to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm going to actually talk about this tomorrow because when I went and spoke in Ohio, I kept talking about planting seeds, and evidently we did plant a seed according to Norma. I'm going to have to research this just a little bit more, but it sounds like one of their local politicians is pretty angry because some stuff that's going on. But I'll tell you, you're gonna want to hear this when I'm gonna have Norma on one day this week, and we're gonna talk about what happened with a thing called Vibrant that was going through Ohio. It was under a different name, but they're trying to go around. It's part of Agenda 21 with the UN stuff, but it's pretty scary what they're trying to get on some of these ballots. So, but I'll have Norma come on and explain it. She explains it much better than I do.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Michael Jack, everybody.
Hoorah. Have a good night.
You got it, buddy. And now I'll give you one last look. I'm backwards on this. One last look. Michael Jack right there. I'm remembering now to turn these things off. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go, don't worry, on. They are stopping viewers. Who is on? Let's see here. Hold on a second here. So what's happening, Maureen? You're saying that people are being stopped from watching. Where is that, on YouTube or is that on Twitter that's happening? You're gonna have to let me know about this because I don't understand. Wolf got blocked on Periscope. Well, I don't know. So here's the thing. On Twitter, everybody's trying to get this super thing, this super fan, and they're hitting the hearts a whole bunch of times. And I have a feeling somebody's doing something that is triggering. It's triggering something to kick people off. So next time you come on, don't give any hearts if you've been kicked off. Just don't do it. And then we'll see what's going on. Look, I'm already of the mindset that Facebook and Twitter are going to do what they can to kick people off and to censor this stuff. That's why I keep telling everybody, you have to go out and tell people about this to get them on and get them to watch. And if they get kicked off, they're going to know it's good if they're kicking us off. Eventually, we're going to figure out a way to do this right. But listen, this is just more, it's more fire for us to bring to the fight or more fuel for us to bring to the fight, because the reality is, if Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are censoring us because we're having a conversation, we're not beating anybody up, we're not threatening any violence. You just had a senior FBI agent on. I was in the FBI and the military and all this stuff. You guys know about that. Nobody on here is saying rude and nasty things. So for them to censor us, it just gives us fuel for the fight, because they're actually doing our job for us. They're showing that they are biased and that they are censoring in a country where censorship is not supposed to happen. So I'm not saying bring it on, but if it happens, you know, we'll use it to our benefit. And trust me, folks, listen, we got ways of spreading this. One thing I've already learned from visiting everybody that I've gone out and visited, if they take this stuff down, we've already got enough contacts. What we'll do is we'll just start doing this show full time on the road. It'd be up to you to donate to the GoFundMe page, but we'll just start doing it on the road. And before long, you know, maybe we'll stay in Ohio for a month, and then we'll go to West Virginia for a month, or maybe we'll hit each place for 1 week at a time. And you guys will be the ones that go out and spread the word. We'll figure out a way to do it. But there's too many people that know about this, that know about the truth. They're not going to be able to stop us now. Not if we keep doing it. If we stop, we're going to be the ones that stop it. So, you know, let me know if you guys, anybody else has any problems, and we'll be able to, we'll just notify me and let me know, whether you're on Twitter or on Facebook. And then we'll see. Wolf, I'd love to see if Wolf could make another Facebook page, and then I would love to. Michael Jack, now he's having real brilliant ideas. I'd love to be able to set up my own thing somehow, some way. If there's a tech guru out there that wants to donate time and effort to this, then maybe you tell us what we need, and we'll put together, and we'll try to make something like where we have our own network somehow. I mean, I don't even, listen, this is what's funny. We don't need cobalt blue lights. We don't need all this crazy stuff. We can make shows so fun and funny and insightful. We don't need these fancy news networks, but we do need people, time, donations, and money to do this stuff. So just be aware of that, folks. It's a work in process and in progress. But I see good things coming. I really do. All right, let's go to the Truth Zone. All right. Hope that's not too loud. This was a good show, folks. We got a lot of good stuff out of this, for sure. Here's what I want to leave you with, though. One of the things about coming onto this show every night is that I'm able to continue to open your mind so that you can see it doesn't matter if I give you the whole picture at once. You know, I talk a lot about these big puzzles. I'm not really good at these puzzles. It's kind of like Pictionary. It's funny. I remember when I was in college and we used to play Pictionary. I don't know if you remember what that game is. You take a blank piece of paper. You're told this one particular thing, and then you draw a picture, and your partner tries to guess what that is with the fewer lines, and then you're competing against other people. I remember I was playing with one of the guys there from school, and I drew a straight line, and he answered it, and it was like crazy, but it just happened to come to his mind for some strange reason. We were so tracking that I drew one line, and boom, he got the answer. So the more of this stuff that you get, some of it will be related within the week, some of it won't. Even during the show, one thing may be related to the other, maybe it won't be. But here's the important part of this, is that The more pieces of the puzzle that you get, the faster you'll be able to start seeing what's going on. And that's the key to this show, folks. It's not that you're going to get all the pieces or that I'm going to come out here and tell you everything that's happening. I'm going to bring different experts to this table. I'm going to bring insight and understanding, knowledge and wisdom and experience to help you identify the reality of what's going on. And also, folks, you will be able, when the time comes to unify, you will already understand unification. And in a lot of ways, you'll already be unified with each other. See that? That's the key to this whole thing. I'm learning as you're learning. I started this for certain reasons, and I'm continuing down that path. But it's interesting how this thing has grown and how we have grown. And the people that show up here every night, your messages have grown. So, Norma, I'm going to have you on tomorrow, or tomorrow will probably be good. Tomorrow night. I just saw you just pop back on there. But, folks, listen. It's not all about analyzing the headlines. It's not all about having all the answers to what's going on. But as you can see last night when I started, and I've been not just last night, I've been predicting this stuff for almost a year now, if not longer, that the DNC is in collusion with the Russians and that these parts are going to start falling out, that the truth will start being revealed. And lo and behold, folks, it's starting to happen. You'll be able to see that as well as you tune in here and tell people about it and have the dialogue. We're going that way, folks. Remember, it takes unity to defeat communism. It takes unity to save this country. I'm Jonathan Gillum. Rico's down there asleep. Thank you for joining me tonight for another night on The Experts. I'll see you tomorrow. The truth, as always, when I'm around, the truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget to go to the GoFundMe page, gofund.me/The Experts Roadshow. It's coming across the screen right there. Every dollar counts, folks. The more we raise, the more I can get out on the road. The more I get closer to getting a Sprinter van or something where I can actually get back there and sleep halfway decent and bring the truth to you. GoFund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Peace.